The first time Elara noticed something was wrong, her husband was smiling at his phone in the middle of the night in 2022. Not the warm smile he reserved for her when she fell asleep on the couch with a book on her chest. Not the proud smile he wore when he got promoted 3 years ago. This smile was different. The kind of smile people wore when they believed they had discovered a shortcut to a better life. She opened one eye from her side of the bed. The blue glow from his screen reflected across his face. "What are you looking at?" she mumbled. He quickly locked the screen. "Nothing." Elara laughed softly. "Nothing usually doesn't make people grin like cartoon villains." His shoulders relaxed. "Just checking football statistics." At 2 in the morning? The World Cup is 6 months away. She groaned. "Only you could start preparing for a tournament half a year early." He kissed her forehead. "That's why you'll thank me later." At the time, she thought it was a joke. Months later, she would remember those words with painful clarity. "You'll thank me later." They lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Manchester. A small townhouse. A reliable car. Shared dreams. Shared bills. Shared plans. Or at least she thought they were shared. Their marriage had always been built on practicality rather than grand romance. She met Ronan during a rainstorm at a bus stop. He offered her half an umbrella. She refused. He insisted. The umbrella broke 5 minutes later. They spent the rest of the afternoon soaked and laughing. That was 12 years ago. Back then, Ronan was charming because he believed impossible things. Somewhere along the way, impossible things stopped being dreams and became obsessions. The World Cup arrived during one of the hottest summers England had seen in years. Every cafe had football on television. Every pub overflowed. Every conversation somehow returned to predictions. Ronan was in heaven. For weeks he talked about statistics. Probability. Undervalued teams. Betting markets. Upsets. Elara listened patiently. Mostly because she loved him. Partly because she understood almost none of it. One evening she returned from work carrying groceries. Ronan was sitting at the dining table surrounded by notebooks. Actual notebooks. Covered in numbers. "Are you preparing for a football match or planning a moon landing?" she asked. Without looking up, he said, "Do you know how often underdogs win after reaching the quarterfinals?" "No." "Exactly." She blinked. "That's not a fact. That's a question. It all connects. You're terrifying." He laughed. For a moment, he looked like the man she married. Then his phone buzzed. His expression sharpened immediately. The smile returned. Elara watched quietly. A strange feeling settled in her stomach. Like hearing a familiar song played slightly out of tune. A week later, she visited the bank. Pure coincidence. She needed a statement for paperwork. The young banker frowned at his computer. "Would you like the transaction history for the entire account?" "Sure." The printer hummed. Pages slid out. Elara glanced down casually. Then froze. She stared. "Read it again." Then again. Several large withdrawals. Huge ones. Thousands of pounds. Her pulse accelerated. There had to be a mistake. She knew every major expense they had. Mortgage. Utilities. Insurance. None of these matched. She walked outside and called Ronan immediately. Hey, he answered. What are the withdrawals? Silence. Only 2 seconds. But 2 seconds can feel like 2 years. What withdrawals? The savings account. Another pause. Oh. Oh. Just that. Oh. Her grip tightened on the phone. Ronan. It's handled. What does that mean? It's an investment. Her stomach dropped. What kind of investment? Can we talk later? No, people passed around her on the sidewalk. Cars rolled by. The entire city kept moving while her world suddenly stood still. What investment? She repeated. He exhaled heavily. The World Cup. For several seconds she genuinely thought she misunderstood. The football tournament? Yes. You invested our savings in football? It's strategic betting. Elara laughed. A short, stunned laugh. The kind people make when reality becomes absurd. Our house deposit fund? It'll grow. Our emergency savings? It'll double. Ronan. It might even triple. She closed her eyes. Oh my God. Trust me. The words made her angrier than the betting itself. Trust me. The phrase people use when they've already broken trust. That night they sat across from each other at the dining table. Neither touched dinner. How much? She asked quietly. He looked away. Ronan. Most of it. Her voice nearly disappeared. How much? 90,000. The room went silent. 90,000 pounds. Years of saving. Years. Birthdays skipped. Vacations postponed. Careful budgeting. Careful planning. Gone. Placed on football matches. I can't breathe, she whispered. It isn't gone. It is if they lose. They won't. They're football teams, Ronan. He stood abruptly. You don't understand. You're right. I don't understand how a grown man gambles our future. His jaw tightened. It's not gambling. She laughed again. This time there was no humor in it. What exactly do you call betting 90,000 pounds on sports? Calculated risk. No. A calculated risk is buying stocks. He pointed at the notebooks. I've studied this for months. You studied football. I studied outcomes. You studied hope. His expression darkened. And for the first time in their marriage, she saw something unsettling. Desperation pretending to be confidence. The tournament progressed. Ronan became impossible to live with. Every match dictated his mood. Wins made him euphoric. Losses made him cruel. Words became weapons. Small cuts. Constant cuts. One evening, after an upset result, he slammed a mug onto the counter. This wasn't supposed to happen. No one knows what's supposed to happen in sports. You don't get it. There it is again, Elara said quietly. What? The assumption that everyone is stupid except you. He stared at her. She stared back. The silence between them stretched. The next morning she left early for work. Except she didn't go to work. She went somewhere Ronan knew nothing about. A small office above a bakery. The sign outside read, North Star Event Strategies. Elara unlocked the door. Inside, 3 employees greeted her. Morning, boss. She smiled. Morning. The business had started accidentally. A wedding coordination favor for a friend. Then another. Then corporate events. Then luxury retreats. Then private contracts. She never hid it. She simply never announced it. Whenever profits arrived, she reinvested them. While Ronan chased shortcuts, Elara built foundations. The company was now worth far more than anyone realized. Including her husband. Especially her husband. Only her accountant knew the actual numbers. And even she occasionally stared at the figures in disbelief. By the time the World Cup reached the knockout stages, North Star had secured contracts stretching 18 months ahead. Elara should have been celebrating. Instead, she spent most evenings watching her marriage unravel. The final blow came on a rainy Sunday. The tournament favorite lost unexpectedly. Ronan's biggest wager collapsed instantly. Hours later he sat motionless in the living room. The television remained on. Crowds celebrated somewhere across the screen. His future disappeared with every cheer. How much? Elara asked softly. He didn't answer. How much did we lose? His eyes stayed fixed on the television. Everything. The word echoed. Everything. For a long time neither spoke. Then something strange happened. Elara felt calm. The panic had finally burned away, leaving clarity behind. We'll recover, she said. Ronan laughed bitterly. We? She frowned. What does that mean? He stood slowly. Months of frustration seemed to pour out of him at once. You never supported me. Her eyebrows lifted. Supported you? You doubted every decision. You gambled our savings. You always believed I'd fail. The accusation landed so absurdly she almost smiled. Ronan. No, his voice rose. For years you've looked at me like I wasn't enough. She stared at him. The irony was breathtaking. She had spent years believing in him, defending him, encouraging him, waiting for him. And now she was being blamed for his choices. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, something far more important was breaking. And neither of them could stop it. As Ronan turned away, Elara looked at the man she had once shared a broken umbrella with and realized she no longer knew him at all. Yet she had the distinct feeling that he didn't truly know her either. Not even close. And somewhere beneath the grief, beneath the disappointment, beneath the wreckage of £90,000 and 12 years of marriage, a quiet secret waited patiently. A secret that would change everything. For the next 2 weeks, their house felt less like a home and more like an airport lounge. People came and went. Conversations remained polite. Nobody unpacked emotionally. Nobody stayed long enough to connect. Ronan spent most of his time glued to football forums, reading explanations from strangers who had also lost money. Elara buried herself in work. The strange thing about heartbreak was that bills still arrived. Contracts still needed signing. Clients still expected miracles. Life had absolutely no respect for personal disasters. One Thursday afternoon, Elara was standing inside a luxury hotel ballroom in Edinburgh. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Florists moved between tables. A nervous executive adjusted his tie before a corporate gala. Elara? She turned. Her operations manager, Soraya, approached with a tablet. We got it. Elara blinked. Got what? The Helix contract. For a second she thought she had misheard. The Helix International contract? Soraya grinned. The one worth 7 figures. Elara's mouth fell open. No. Yes. No. Very professional response, boss. Elara laughed despite herself. Then she sat down abruptly in the nearest chair. The Helix contract was the largest opportunity North Star had ever pursued. A global technology company. 3 countries. Multiple events. A project so large she had almost convinced herself they would never win it. Yet there it was. Approved. Signed. Real. For a brief moment, joy pushed through the clouds gathering over her marriage. Then her phone vibrated. Ronan. The joy disappeared instantly. She answered. Hello? We need to talk. His voice sounded cold. About what? I've spoken to a lawyer. The ballroom vanished. The music vanished. The voices vanished. Only those 4 words remained. I've spoken to a lawyer. I see. I think divorce is the best option. The sentence landed with surprising softness. Not because it didn't hurt. Because a small part of her had already seen it coming. A marriage doesn't collapse in one moment. It collapses in thousands. The final moment simply makes the damage visible. When? She asked quietly. As soon as possible. Okay. A pause. Ronan seemed almost surprised. Okay. What would you like me to say? I thought you'd argue. Elara looked around the ballroom. Employees rushed between tables. Workers prepared for celebrations. Life continued. No, she said softly. I'm tired. After the call ended, she sat motionless for several minutes. Eventually Soraya noticed. Everything all right? Elara smiled. The kind of smile people wear when they're holding a door shut against a flood. Not particularly. 3 weeks later, Ronan officially filed. The reasons listed were vague. Irreconcilable differences. Growing apart. Loss of trust. The irony almost made Elara laugh. She signed the paperwork and handed it back. Her attorney adjusted his glasses. You seem unusually calm. I'm not calm. No? I'm exhausted. He nodded thoughtfully. That's usually what calm looks like after enough disappointment. The divorce process moved quickly. There were no children. No complicated properties. No dramatic courtroom battles. At least not initially. Then financial disclosures began. And everything changed. Ronan's lawyer requested documentation. Assets. Income. Accounts. Investments. The usual procedure. Elara submitted everything. 3 days later, her lawyer called, laughing. What's funny? She asked. You should probably sit down. I am sitting. Good. Tell me. Ronan's attorney thinks there has been a mistake. What kind of mistake? He thinks you accidentally added an extra 0. Elara closed her eyes. Oh, that. North Star. The company. The contracts. The retained earnings. The investments. Years of growth hidden behind ordinary appearances. Years of reinvesting instead of flaunting. Years of choosing stability over spectacle. How did he react? She asked. He requested another disclosure review. She couldn't help smiling. Of course he did. Because Ronan had always believed he understood money. Yet somehow he never noticed the woman beside him quietly building a company worth millions. The following week, they met face to face for mediation. It was the first time they'd seen each other in nearly a month. Ronan entered confidently. Then saw the paperwork. Then saw the numbers. Then sat down very slowly. His attorney whispered something. Ronan didn't respond. He simply stared. Page after page. Contract values. Business assets. Revenue projections. Investment accounts. The silence stretched so long that even the mediator appeared uncomfortable. Finally, Ronan looked up. His face had gone pale. What is this? Elara folded her hands calmly. My business. You own all this? Yes. You never told me. The statement hung in the air. You never told me. Elara almost admired the audacity. You never asked. He laughed sharply. Come on. No, her voice remained calm. You knew I coordinated events. I didn't know. You never wanted details. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Nothing emerged. Because she was right. Every evening she had talked about clients. Contracts. Venues. Growth plans. He simply never listened long enough to notice. His interests always returned to himself. His ambitions. His schemes. His predictions. Now those omissions stood before him in black and white. A multi-million-pound reality. The mediator cleared his throat. We can continue once everyone is ready. Nobody moved. Especially Ronan. His eyes remained fixed on the documents. As if staring long enough might make them disappear. Finally he leaned back. I don't understand. Elara did perfectly. For years, Ronan had viewed her as stable background music. He had mistaken her quietness for lack of ambition. Her patience for passivity. Her support for dependence. Now he was discovering how little he truly knew her. And he hated it. The weeks that followed became increasingly uncomfortable. Not because of legal battles. Because Ronan suddenly wanted conversations. Long conversations. Important conversations. The kind he had ignored for years. One evening he called unexpectedly. I was thinking. Dangerous hobby. To her surprise, he laughed. A genuine laugh. For a second it reminded her of the young man from the broken umbrella. Then reality returned. What were you thinking about? She asked. Us. She looked out her apartment window. She had moved into a temporary luxury apartment overlooking the river. The city lights reflected across the water. Beautiful. Distant. Untouchable. What about us? I made mistakes. The admission was so rare she nearly dropped the phone. He continued. I got obsessed. Yes. I thought if I won big, everything would be fixed. Elara said nothing. Because that was the tragedy, wasn't it? People often believe money will solve emotional problems. As though a larger bank account can compensate for a smaller character. I wasn't trying to hurt you. The words sounded sincere. Painfully sincere. And somehow that made them worse. Because most betrayals aren't committed by villains. They're recommitted by ordinary people convincing themselves they're justified. I know, she said quietly. The line fell silent. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Ronan asked the question she had secretly expected. Is there any chance we could start over? Outside, rain began tapping softly against the glass. Very similar to the rain from the day they met. Life had a strange sense of humor. Elara smiled sadly. Months ago she would have given almost anything to hear those words. Now they felt oddly late. Like flowers arriving after the funeral. She looked at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back seemed different. Stronger. Sadder. Wiser. And perhaps a little lonelier. I don't know, she answered honestly. Because she truly didn't. Not yet. And somewhere across the city, Ronan sat alone with that uncertainty. For the first time in years, there was no match to predict. No statistic to calculate. No shortcut to chase. Only consequences. And consequences, unlike football games, could not be replayed. If you found yourself quietly rooting for Elara, or maybe questioning whether Ronan deserves another chance, leave a comment below for Moment and Moonlight. Sometimes the most revealing stories are the ones that force us to choose between forgiveness and self-respect. Outside, the rain continued falling. And neither of them realized that a much older secret was about to surface. A secret neither marriage, money, nor divorce papers could erase. A secret that had begun 12 years earlier with a broken umbrella and a choice that neither of them remembered quite the same way. The older secret arrived in the most ordinary way possible. Not through a mysterious letter. Not through a dramatic confession. Not through some shocking stranger appearing at the door. It arrived in a cardboard box. A week after their mediation meeting, Elara was clearing out the attic of the townhouse they had once shared. The house was being prepared for sale. The marriage was ending. The practical details of untangling 12 years together had become strangely mechanical. Sort. Pack. Label. Donate. Discard. It was amazing how many memories could fit inside cardboard. Near the back corner of the attic, she found a dusty box marked with fading handwriting. Old papers. Inside were photographs. Utility bills. Holiday cards. Random scraps of a life built over more than a decade. Then she found a small notebook. One she immediately recognized. It belonged to Ronan. She almost set it aside. Then curiosity won. The notebook was old. Far older than the football notebooks. Far older than the betting calculations. The pages were yellowing. She opened it. At first, it appeared to be a collection of personal goals. Career targets. Savings goals. Things he wanted to achieve before 30. Then she reached a page dated just 2 months after they first met. And froze. She read the words once. Then twice. Then a third time. Not because they were shocking. Because they were unexpectedly heartbreaking. I think she's the most determined person I've ever met. She works harder than anyone I know. Sometimes I worry she'll outgrow me. Elara stared. She continued reading. She's smarter than she realizes. I keep pretending I'm the ambitious one, but honestly, she scares me a little. In a good way. Another page. If she ever starts her own business, she'll probably be unstoppable. A strange ache settled in her chest. She turned more pages. The entries continued for years. Not every day. Not every month. Just occasional snapshots. Thoughts. Fears. Dreams. And one pattern appeared again and again. Ronan had spent years believing she was extraordinary. Years. Long before North Star existed. Long before the money. Long before the divorce. Then she reached an entry written about 5 years earlier. The tone changed. Everyone keeps asking why Elara isn't doing more with her talent. I hate admitting this, but sometimes it bothers me. She's becoming successful in ways I don't understand. I feel stuck. The next entry came nearly 6 months later. Her business keeps growing. Mine doesn't. I know I should be happy for her. I am happy for her. I think. The final word seemed almost painful. I think. Elara closed the notebook. The attic suddenly felt very quiet. The revelation wasn't that Ronan never loved her. The revelation was far more ordinary. And far more tragic. He had loved her. Deeply, then somewhere along the way, comparison entered the room. And comparison quietly poisoned everything like rust. Until admiration became insecurity. Insecurity became resentment. And resentment became self-destruction. For the first time, Elara understood something she hadn't fully grasped before. The betting wasn't really about football. The World Cup had simply been the vehicle. The real gamble was Ronan's desperate attempt to prove something. To himself. To the world. Maybe even to her. He wasn't chasing money. He was chasing significance. And in the process, he lost both. That evening she called him. Hello? His voice sounded cautious. I found one of your old notebooks. Silence. Then a groan. Oh no. She smiled. That bad? Depends which notebook. The one where you apparently thought I was terrifying. He immediately knew which one. Oh. A pause. Then another. Those weren't supposed to survive. I noticed. He laughed softly. For the first time in months, neither sounded angry. You wrote that I'd be unstoppable. You were. You knew before I did. I told you. No, she replied. You wrote it down. That's different. The line grew quiet, then Ronan sighed. I spent years trying to become the person I thought I was supposed to be. And? I should have become the person I already was. Elara looked out her window, the river shimmered beneath the evening lights. For once, neither of them seemed interested in defending themselves. There was only honesty. Raw and uncomplicated. I think that's true, she said. I really did love you, Elara. She closed her eyes. I know. And I really ruined it. The words hung there. No excuses. No blame. No football statistics. Just truth. Yes, she said gently. You did. Strangely, that honesty felt kinder than false reassurance. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. The townhouse sold. The paperwork ended. Life moved forward. North Star continued growing. The Helix contract became a success. Then another contract arrived. Then another. Elara expanded into international markets. Hired more staff. Opened a second office. The business she had quietly nurtured became something remarkable. Yet success felt different than she once imagined. It wasn't a triumphant victory over Ronan. It was simply the result of years of showing up consistently. The same thing Ronan had searched for shortcuts to achieve. As for him, life humbled him, which turned out to be exactly what he needed. He sold the car he couldn't comfortably afford, took a less glamorous position, stopped chasing impossible wins, started rebuilding, one ordinary day at a time. The process wasn't exciting, but it was real. And for the first time in years, real was enough. Almost 2 years later, Elara attended a charity gala in Copenhagen, one of her company's largest events to date. The ballroom buzzed with conversation. Champagne glasses clinked. Music drifted through the air. She moved confidently through the crowd, greeting clients and guests. At one point she stepped outside onto a terrace overlooking the city. The evening air was cool, peaceful, still hiding from crowds. She turned. A man stood nearby. Tall, dark-haired, holding a cup of coffee instead of champagne. His name was Soren, an architect she had met 6 months earlier during a conference project. Unlike most successful men she encountered, Soren seemed entirely uninterested in impressing anyone, which was probably why she liked him. "I'm not hiding," she said. "I'm strategically relocating." That's a very consultant answer. It's a very architect question. He smiled. She smiled back. Something she had once underestimated. As they stood overlooking the city lights, Soren asked, "Can I take you to dinner tomorrow?" "You've already taken me to dinner 3 times. Then a 4th time." She pretended to think about it. A difficult decision? Extremely. "I can wait." "Good. How long?" She laughed. "Tomorrow sounds fine." His grin widened. And just like that, it felt simple. Not because love was simple, but because healthy love didn't constantly require proving itself. Later that night, as the gala ended, Elara stood alone for a moment near the ballroom entrance. The crowd slowly dispersed. The city sparkled beyond the windows, and she found herself thinking about the strange journey that had brought her there. Years earlier, she believed her future had been destroyed the day her husband emptied their savings account. But life rarely follows the stories we write for ourselves. The money had been lost. The marriage had ended. The dreams she once protected had changed shape entirely. Yet somehow, she hadn't lost her future. She had found it. Not through luck. Not through gambling. Not through a miraculous last-minute rescue. But through quiet effort repeated over and over until it became success. The same way North Star was built. The same way healing happened. The same way she rebuilt herself. And perhaps that was the real twist all along. The story was never about the World Cup. It was never about the money. It was about 2 people facing the same uncertainty in completely different ways. One bet everything on a miracle. The other built something brick by brick. One searched for a shortcut. The other trusted the process. And when life finally revealed the score, the winner wasn't the person who predicted the future. It was the person who prepared for it. Before you leave Moment and Moonlight, share in the comments. If you were in Elara's position, would you have forgiven Ronan enough to start over, or would you have chosen the path she did? And if this story stayed with you, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can meet again under another Moonlit story. As the last guests disappeared into the Copenhagen night, Elara stepped outside, lifted her face toward the cool breeze, and smiled. Not because everything had gone according to plan, but because, at last, she no longer needed it to.